Welcome back. Chris Holman here on the road for the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network, and we are at the Grand Traverse Resort for the annual CAR meeting. That's the Center for Automotive Research, where a lot of innovation comes out. So Kirk Steudle has joined us today, and he's with the Michigan Department of Transportation. And let's talk a little bit about your role, because you're up here, and I mean, we talk about the cars and the innovation with all the... They're on your roads.
That's right. It's easy at this conference to think just about cars, but you know what? They have to interface with something, right? So traditionally, that interface has always been the tire, right? The automotive engineers design from the tire up, and the civil engineers design from the tire down. And what's happened over the last 7-8 years is the worlds of engineering, civil engineering, mechanical, electrical, computers are starting to blend together. So now you have these electronics, and now you have the sensitivity of where a paint line is on a roadway that impacts how a car performs, right? And at least in this interim period, I mean, eventually the systems will be much smarter and be less dependent upon that. But that's where our involvement with them is, well, how do we help solve problems for today's vehicles, but also anticipate what's coming in the future and help that research and development happen right here in Michigan.
Okay, so there is a lot of interface there. There's also, as we talk about the autonomous car, there are some things that have to go into that roadway to accommodate that as well.
Right, yeah. So pure autonomy, right? The cars can just run down the road by itself with its own sensors. That's good. But when things get kind of, unstructured out there, snowstorm or something, then they need an extra level of certainty, and that's where the vehicle-to-vehicle or vehicle-to-infrastructure components come in. The interaction with traffic signals, and we've talked before about how we're doing that in Southeast Michigan, and that ultimately is when we start to get to the point where we're saving lives, and that's the driver for our Department of Transportation, is reducing fatalities. And automated vehicles, connected automation is likely to reduce that by about 80 to 90%. Yeah. 93, 94% of all crashes are caused by human error. So the sooner we take the human decisions out of that equation, we can drop the fatality rates.
Why are you staring at me?
Hopefully downstairs you signed the distracted driver pledge from the Kiefer Foundation.
No, but I will on my way out. I promise you.
We'll be distracted in a lobby and sign that.
That's exactly right.
Get your distractions out of the way before you get in behind the wheel.
And I hate to vary from the interaction from the cars to the road, but it's all part of it. There are a lot of particular problems with running MDOT as opposed to DOT, right? So we've got the weather conditions and things like that, and the infrastructure now is on its way back.
Right. Yeah, it really is. And if you think about what's going on in Michigan, we have traditional, just bread and butter stuff that 95% of what we're doing is just maintaining roads, rebuilding them, making sure the stripes are in good condition. And that striping piece has gone up in priority, in the past as well. The human can figure that out, and, we'll get to that. Well, it's a higher priority now. But you have to balance all of the day-to-day stuff. How do you take care of today, but at the same time, take a little sliver of that money and prepare for the future, and then help the research that, frankly, from an economic development perspective, is our bread and butter here in this state from the economy, and make sure that grows and thrives here and doesn't grow and thrive in some other state.
Yeah. And I want to do a little pitch, too, because of how the roads are funded and who uses them, et cetera, because I've sworn at truck drivers before, and I'm sure we all have at one point or another. This is another consideration we have to have. There's a lot of product that ships through this state.
There absolutely is. We still are a very heavy manufacturing state, right? So we produce things, whether it's agriculture, heavy manufacturing like we see here. We produce things, and we're depending upon that transportation network, largely by truck. Most freight in the state, about 70-75%, moves by truck. There's a chunk that moves by rail, there's a chunk that moves by boat. But all of that together has to be good, has to be connected, or we lose our economic backbone. And that's really the piece that is important to understand. When there's trucks on the road, that means there's economic activity. So, you go to another part of the country and they're worried about congestion due to cars. That's neat. I'm interested in congestion due to trucks, because trucks means we're building something, it's shipping. When we're building something, it means people are working, they got a job that plants up, and then the whole economy does better.
All right, so listen, Halifax builds this deep sea port, and nobody ever thinks about that, but that affects the traffic running through our state.
Yeah, absolutely it does. Halifax builds that. CN has a big big rail terminal there. Things start now coming in by rail. They get offloaded in a multimodal fashion from a rail car onto the back of a truck. You can see the containers when you drive down the road. If you notice the difference, once some semis are self-contained, like a Meyer truck or a steel case truck, and many others are containers that came off of a ship and got put on a trailer. And you see a lot of those going down the road. It's a really big deal from an economic perspective for us.
It's a big deal for all of us. Kirk Steudle from Michigan Department of Transportation. Thanks so much for stopping by, my friend.
Thank you.
I'll see you on the roads.
All right.
All right, very good. Chris Holman here, and we are at the CAR, Center for Automotive Research, annual meeting, the executive briefing, and we'll be back in just a minute on the Michigan Business Network on the Michigan Business Beat.